like Julia Child. She has the weirdest voice. Have to do her at one point. Hello, so I'm Nana, and I'm going to cook for you. I'm not a professional chef, and I'm not a professional baker. I only cook for my family, and I have enjoyed it for many, many years. And my family has grown over the years from just 3 children to 6 grandchildren, a great-granddaughter, and several. I've got stepchildren, I've got step-grandchildren, I've got son-in-laws and a daughter-in-law. And so my family has grown considerably, and I've enjoyed cooking for them for many years. And so I'm sharing with you tried and true family recipes. Some of them I've had to adjust because over the years we've had some issues with health. So we've got one person in the family that's got celiac disease. We've got some people that have got, they're lactose intolerant. We've got some people that can't eat pork. So family recipes have to be adopted for families. And so today I'm making a family favorite called Sexnapan. And here's my recipe for Sexnapan. It has been marked up, drawn on by people because everybody loves it. So what I've done now is I'll talk to you a little bit about gluten intolerance, pardon me. Anyway, what you have to do when you have somebody in your family that's gluten intolerant is make sure, number one, that they actually have a gluten intolerance. It should be, you should see a doctor and have that diagnosed properly. So then after that you have to find out exactly what gluten is, because it is not just wheat that people that have gluten intolerance can't eat. They can't eat things like barley and rolled oats. There's quite a few different things. So the first thing you have to do is become conscious of what is in the products that you are cooking. So reading what's in the ingredients is a very important thing. So you have to go through. Now there's wheat and gluten in a lot of things that you would never think there was any in. So you have to read the packages. Now I've cooked a recipe years ago. I had somebody come and stay with me who was celiac. And I was a bit surprised when I started looking through the contents of a cocoa powder and found out it had wheat in it. And I thought, oh, isn't that interesting? So now I look at what's in cocoa, what's in anything that I cook for the particular family member that I have that has the problem. So, so that's what I do for that. Now I don't cook all the time for gluten-free because it's pretty limited. I don't know if you realize how restricted a person that has that problem is in their diet. There's a lot of stuff with it, and the lady that I cooked for that had the first celiacs that I ever cooked for, she told me she'd rather be diabetic than have celiacs because she said her diet is so limited it's not very much fun. So the other thing is, you might as well know, is when I cook with butter. I cook with butter because it really only has one ingredient, and it's usually cream. So that's the other thing. I try to buy Canadian products because I'm a Canadian, and I think we should buy our own products. We make very good products in Canada, and we should be very proud of it and use them as liberally as we possibly can. So then, that's my apostolizing to you. This is my daughter, pardon me, my granddaughter Caitlin. She's my daughter because I'm that young. Anyway, she's going to be my assistant. She's also the producer, writer, director, and my boss. So that's her. Now, so what do you need? So first of all, when you do a recipe, you should always read your recipe through first to make sure, number one, that you have all the products that you need, because you don't want to have to run out to the store right in the middle of starting a recipe and have to buy stuff. So always read through your recipe, make sure you've got everything that you need. Try to figure out whether or not you got the pans that you need for it and the baking utensils. You don't need a whole lot of things. I don't have a kitchen the size of Martha Stewart's set on television. I actually live in a condo. I can produce a meal here for my whole family, which sometimes, we're usually at least 10 of us eat here when we have a family dinner, and many times more. So you don't need a big place, you don't need a lot of fancy equipment, but you just have to have what you need. You need pans, you need different sizes of baking equipment like these kind of things. You can get Pyrex. You can go and buy a lot of these things if you're not just starting out and you haven't got a lot of money. Go down to the thrift store. Go down to Salvation Army. Go buy their stuff. There's a lot of people who get rid of all kinds of this stuff, and you can buy it by the boatloads. So anyway, so this recipe can be done 2 ways. I always bake my crusts for these recipes, only because I think that they don't get soggy. I'm not that fond of unbaked cracker crusts, so I usually bake them. So to begin with, the recipe says to make the crust. So what I do is that I bake the crust at 350 degrees. It takes about 15 minutes for an oven to heat up. So the next thing we got to do is we have to make the base. So the base, I'm going to clear off some of these things here because we're going to move something over.
Do you want this open, Nana?
Yes, please. Now the other thing with gluten-free, these gluten-free biscuits and stuff is you have to be careful with the amount of butter you put into them, because I find that sometimes they get quite oily. So be careful with that. Less is best. So I got my big fancy thing here. So first thing you have to do is you can make your own cracker crumbs. Now you can buy the non-gluten-free cracker crumbs, and you just dump them in. Now I don't know. This is going to be our test taste today. I don't know whether this is going to be enough these what are they called? They're called flavored cocoa and vanilla flavored gluten-free bunny cookies. So I'm not sure whether this is going to be enough, so you're going to be ending with the experiment here. So, first thing you have to do is you have to make some fine crumbs. Now, I don't particularly think this is going to be chocolatey enough. So this is another part of this experiment, is I'm going to add some cocoa powder to see if I can get it so that it's a nice chocolatey flavor. And so I'm just going to start with some. You cannot do anything. Any recipe can be adjusted to your own taste. You just have to be brave. Okay, now we have to have a little bit of sugar. Now it says 1/4 cup. I don't necessarily use 1/4 cup. I use a little less, actually. Only because I just find some things are a bit sweet, so I don't use as much. Now you have to melt. And the other thing is when you're cooking gluten-free, you have to make sure that your cupboards and everything are cleaned off so that you're not incorporating any wheat or gluten into your recipes. The other thing is, if you notice, this is I'm just opening this up now. Now I'm doing it like this because the rest of us aren't gluten-free, so a lot of times your butter and stuff will be contaminated with bits and pieces of bread particles or anything like that. So I always start out with a fresh piece of butter, and to make sure that I'm not contaminating it. So you need 1/3 cup of melted butter. So I just melt it in the microwave, and don't mind me, but I don't measure all the time. I usually go by look now. I've done these recipes so many times. Now I have got one base that I cooked last night. This is not gluten-free. So this is just the regular base that I would have to do my Sexna pan in. And the reason I did it this way is because it'll take less time. Because it takes about 10 minutes to bake the base. Microwaves make your life so much easier. There's so much you can do with microwaves and so much you can't do with them, but this is one thing that they're great for. And the other thing is I don't know about where you are, but it is very hot here right now.
Last thing you want to do is turn an oven on.
Yeah, no kidding. Turning the oven on is like, you might as well just... Okay, so now what I would do for this, because of the type of biscuit that I've used in here, is I wouldn't add the whole 1/3 at a time. I would just add a little bit. And what you want is you want your crumbs to be moist. And I think the thing is they should look like wet sand. But what you don't want is you don't want it to be so greasy that it looks that it's just a greasy mess. So I would just do this, and see, almost right now I can tell by the look of this stuff that it's pretty well moist enough. So with gluten-free stuff you have to be really careful. I'll show you. This, look at this, see how moist that is? Now that was with a lot less than what I was supposed to add. So the other thing you can do is it says 1.5 cups of chocolate wafers, and so if you're doing gluten-free you can always add more wafer to it. But just make sure that it's not really overly greasy, because otherwise all it is a pile of grease in and it doesn't really have nice flavor. Now, so the other thing you have to do with this is you have to take out a little bit of the crumb and put it aside. And then the rest of it, you take it and you put it into your 9x13 pan. Now I've got Pyrex and I've got all these things, but don't forget I've been baking for since I was about 10 years old, and believe me, over the years you amass a whole lot of stuff, but you really don't need it. You can use a metal one, you can use anything that you find, borrow your mother's, borrow your grandmother's. You just have to do it. And then what you do is you pat this out. Now this one's a bit thinner than what I'd normally want to do. So like I say, I would put more biscuit in this. I would probably put 1.5 packages of that in there. But you have to go by what you find in your gluten-free stuff, because you just have to sort of get a feel for it. So then we do this. So it's nice and flat. And you want to press it down a little bit too, because it also makes it stick together, so that when you cut it, you get a nice base cut for it. So that's basically what you do there. Okay, so now the recipe is very, very easy. And you can do this any way you want. I read these things. They got this stuff called lasagna recipes now, and they seem to be basically all there is a layered dessert. Now for this one, I make it all in one layer because that's the way my family like it, and that's how they'll get it. So you start out with 1 8-ounce package of cream cheese. You can buy any kind you want. I don't stick to, I know some of these things have their brand names like Cool Whip, and this is, but you can use any kind you want, any kind you can afford. You don't have to go out and buy, thousands of dollars worth of food either to make good food. What you have to do is take your time, find some recipes you like, and work on them. And don't be afraid to accommodate your family. Don't be afraid to change things up. Put something in you like, take something out you don't like. All you can do is try and experiment and just do it. And then, you know what? In a few years of experimentation and a few years of trial and error, you'll find out what you like to eat and what your family likes to eat, and you will enjoy it, and everybody will sit down and go yum yum and thank you, and you'll be so happy with what you did. So this is how you have to sort of do it. You need, actually I'm going to get one more dish because I do something a little different that I don't really even think you have to do. Okay, where's my sugar? Okay, so what do I need here? I need a 1/4 cup of sugar. It says 1/3 cup, so I'll just use a little less. So you need a 1/4 cup of sugar and 2 tablespoons of milk. So you put that. The other thing is your cream cheese should be at room temperature. If you don't have it at room temperature, you're going to have lumpy cream cheese when you do this. You need 2 tablespoons of milk. You can put your milk in one of these and then it's easier to ladle it out rather than trying to dump it out of a great big jug of milk, because I can guarantee you'll end up with 2-3 cups in there. And so you put this like this. And then you can use your hand beater. I've got a great big KitchenAid too that can beat anything up. And then you just beat this. It goes quite nicely. It's easy. Just beat it until it's reasonably smooth. Now you want to beat it until it's reasonably smooth, because the whole idea of Sexapan is for it to be nice, creamy, smooth, delicious. Okay, this doesn't look as smooth as I'd like it, but I'll beat it a little bit harder. And you know what? If it's not perfectly smooth, it's got little lumps in it, you know what? Your family's going to eat it anyway because they'll love it. So your next part of this recipe is 3.5 cups of cold milk. So if I was Martha, of course I'd have all this stuff measured, but then I don't have 5,000 people working for me. I only got my granddaughter here. She's got to work away. Okay, so that's that one. 3.5 cups of cold milk. 2 of these, 2 Jell-O instant chocolate pudding. The only basic thing is instant chocolate pudding should be your mantra for this particular recipe. Doesn't need to be Jell-O. It can be any kind your family likes. I wasn't sure about Dr. Oetker's or anything like that, because I'm not too sure how they work. So just get one that you like, and it's an instant pudding and has a good chocolate flavor. And it will turn out. Just dump these 2 in here. As you can see, it's just ticking right along.
Chocolate smells so good.
Yeah, it does. It's really nice.
Chocolate.
Of course, what's there not to dislike about chocolate? Come on. How many people hate chocolate? I don't mind it. But the trouble with family recipes and family favorites is you can't change them once you've made them and people like them. I know I've got some recipes I've made and I've changed them slightly through the time. And I don't know about your family, but we got family sniffers and tasters. My oldest daughter's got a gourmet taste of I don't know what, but she can tell I've put something different. If I make stuffing for Christmas or something like that for her turkey, she goes around, she goes, "There's something different in this recipe. What did you do to it, Mama?" And I said, "I haven't done anything to it." She said, "You've changed something." And then we've got the sniffers that go around. I'm not too sure. Isn't there something different in that recipe? So anyway, it's hard to change recipes once you start. And it's amazing how finely tuned your taste buds get to all these things. So you beat this basically until you can feel it starts to thicken, because I mean it is an instant pudding, and it'll start to thicken on its own. And then you sort of do this, and then you just do it until it feels like a thing. It takes a couple of minutes.
Do you want that in the oven?
Yeah, please. Can you put it on for 10 minutes? So this is going into the oven now. We're going for 10 minutes. And then you take it out and you let it cool completely to room temperature. See the timer there? Okay, so this is thickened. You can see it looks pretty runny yet. But it'll get thicker as it goes along. And if you get worried about it, just beat it a little bit more. But you can see, even if I took it out and I left it for just a second, and I can feel it's thickening up. Okay, so now what you do is you add, oh, look at that, I get to lick, yummy. So you add this to this. You can adjust your recipes too to make sure they're less sweetened. Now I've never made this with sugar-free puddings or anything like that, but I can't see that you can't do it like that, but I just would be careful. If you're going to do that kind of experiment, I'd make sure you weren't going to do it on a day that you wanted the thing to be perfect. Do it. Get yourself some family members that are willing to be your guinea pigs and work at it. Now this thing isn't perfectly smooth, which is nice if you can get it like that, but you know, it's not going to make any difference. Okay, so now you have to have 1 container of this whipped topping type of dessert. Now you can get the ones that are, I think they make some that are what do you call? They're sort of like a generic brand, and they're probably just as good. I use this one because this is the one I've always used. So now let's talk a little bit about this stuff. So I've tried it where I've used more than half of a Cool Whip. It's 1 liter container. I have used it where I've used more than half of this in this stuff here, and to be honest with you, it didn't taste very good. It was, it didn't have that nice kind of chocolatey taste that this gives it. But when you do it like this, it just whips it up a little bit, makes it a little bit lighter, and then you just have this like this, and you just fold it in. You don't need to be precious. Cakes are kind of, but I read someplace too lately that cakes don't necessarily need that. It's when you open the oven or something, it tends to make them go funny, but I don't know. I've had kids stomp around my kitchen for years. My children stomped around my kitchen. My grandchildren stomped around my kitchen. If I was worried about cake falling, it would have fallen here. I would never have gotten any baking done. So that's it for that recipe. And all you do is this. You put it into your prepared base. And look at that. Now you can't tell me that doesn't look delicious. I mean, look at the beautiful color. It's nice, light chocolatey looking brown, and it's yummy. It's like a chocolate. I mean, if you wanted, I guess you could call it almost like a chocolate cheesecake. It's just not as rich and as dense as a cheesecake would be. So, what you do is you flatten this out. Flatten this out like this. The other thing is, if you're making some things that are gluten-free and some things aren't, you have to figure out how you're going to market to make sure that whoever's can't eat the gluten has got the right stuff, because you don't want to hurt people. I mean, the last thing you want to do is have somebody in your family going home sick because you put something in their food that they can't eat. They never want to come back again. Not unless you don't like them. If you don't want them around, yeah, go for it. But I mean, if you like them and you want them around, let's face it, you like having a family dinner that's nice and everybody sits around and enjoys it. So, okay, so that's about that for that one. Now, I just want to try to make it so that I have a tendency to have mine sort of skewed. They're lower at one end and higher at the other, but try to make it as nice and flat as you can. Now your Cool Whip. So you take this and you blotch it around on the top. Blotching is a technical term when you're cooking. I think it's right up there with slurp it around. So you just do this. Now the first time I ever ate Sexapan was many, many years ago, and a friend of mine made it, and I thought, wow, that was really good. She froze it, and I find that freezing kind of changes the taste of things. So I've never frozen mine. I've always made it kind of like this. And I'll move that away so you can see that I'm doing. So as you can see, it's not a great big fat layer of Cool Whip because you don't need it. And like I say, if you use too much, it's not going to taste very good. It's going to taste bland, actually. And I don't know about you, but I love food that tastes good. I always think food is one of the joys in life that we are so fortunate to be able to have in Canada. We can afford to have lovely food. We eat well. We are so fortunate. And I think eating well is a good is always a nice thing. And when you have family to share it with, family and friends, much, much better. You have to have a bit of a philosophy of eating and a philosophy of who you want to feed, because you don't want to feed people that you don't like. Nothing's worse than having people at your table that you just like to sort of tell them to go away. Always feed people that you like and that you love. There, see, that doesn't look too bad. Now, recycle, reuse. And then, last night when I baked this, where is it? There it is. When I baked this, this is the crumb that I saved from the bottom. I took a quarter of a cup of it out, and then what you do is you just sprinkle it around so it looks kind of pretty. Break it up with your fingers. If you're wondering what that noise is in the back, it's my husband. He's busy tinkering because that's what he likes to do. So you just do it. I mean, it doesn't, nothing has to be terrifically fancy, because one thing about family, it's mostly the company, the food that they love to eat, and you got this. Now, if you wanted to make it into separate layers, you could always take the cream cheese layer, put it on first without doing the chocolate, mixing chocolate in it. Then you can put the chocolate pudding on top, and then you can put the Cool Whip on top of that. I don't think it would make much difference. I don't think the taste would be much different because it would be roughly the same. So that's what it looks like. So this is the one that's not gluten-free. So the gluten-free one, other than the way I did the crackers, using the gluten-free crackers and making sure my butter didn't have any contamination in it, that's the only difference there is. So anyway, so then you put this in the fridge, and it takes about 2 hours to set. Hello! Welcome back to Nom Nom by Nana. So here are our completed Saxon pans. This is the regular one that is not gluten-free, and this is the gluten-free one. As you can see, the one that's not gluten-free is a lot darker than the one that is gluten-free. But that's the difference in the amount of chocolate, I'm sure, or cocoa that's in the crackers. Okay, so here's the taste test. So here goes. So here is the regular non-gluten-free Sex in a Pan. Delicious as usual. Nom nom nom. Or is it nom 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 as the millennials say? Now here is the gluten-free one. Not bad. It's not sweet, really sweet. It could use a bit more chocolate, I think, in the crackers. And that does make a difference. And there's a bit of difference in the consistency of the feel in your mouth of the crackers. But they're both very good. Oh, remember, like, subscribe, hit the bell for the post notes.